Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of His Dark Material. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with this interesting situation with Father McPhail after he learned about Father Gomez's, pseudo failure, but it was like him being like, yeah, it's going to be a little harder to kill the girl because it's like, she's got someone with her that can just disappear into thin air because it's like, right, you guys have no idea about the soda knife and everything. So it's like, right, of course you wouldn't. I mean, to be fair, all that happened without none of you really interacted with Will and her, so it makes sense why you wouldn't know about this. So they're in the dark about its existence. And Father McPhail, and I think in his mind, it's just like, no, this girl, she has to be stopped. Like, just the fact that she's even more, like, the fact that she's able to do something like that makes him probably think, like, that's her. Like, oh, it's the power of Eve and her evil that's able to allow her to do something like that. But it's like, probably solidifies even more. It's like, no, that's more reason why we have to stop her because there's no telling what she's fully capable of. Well, he goes trying to, hear the authority, but the authority's not there. It's like, well, he's off doing something, left his regent, Metatron in charge. So it's like, yeah, I guess it's like, Metatron's like, yeah. Once again, the whole conversation last episode was, yeah, the authority doesn't even know your name, doesn't even recognize it, isn't even worried about you, which I don't know if that's 100% true or what. But it's like, yeah, why is the authority not in the kingdom of heaven? Why is the authority like, yeah, I'm off doing his own thing. Why leave his regent in charge? What is he up to? And it's the regent paying attention. But in that moment, Father McPhail just feels like, oh, the authority isn't there. But it's like, fine, I'll do it on my own volition. I'll do it on my own. And ends up bringing in Dr. Cooper. I was like, yeah, okay. Dr. Cooper, the last time we saw her is when everything went down at the station back in season 1. So he talked about the blasphemy of what they did, the terrible thing, the sacrifices they made that were not theirs to make. But now it's like he wants her to use that technology because it's like, hey, Azrael was able to take what you guys were able to do and he blew a hole in the sky and was able to go to another world. He wants to take that very energy, a similar thing, and make a weapon out of it to kill Lyra. Which I'm immediately like, for one, there's an interesting parallel you can almost make between, well, not almost, you can directly make between Father McPhail and Azrael in this episode, but we'll get to that soon enough. But at least with Father McPhail, him wanting to weaponize it, which I was like, that seems hypocritical, considering you're chastising her for what they were doing. In their mind, they thought they were doing greater good, because it's like, right, their research went above where it was supposed to, but I guess it's like, right, once you're already doing, I guess the Cardinal's the one that kind of okayed it, like the Father, because he wasn't Father President or President Father that he is now, so he gets to dictate that and look down upon them, but he's still taking advantage of that technology, because he's like, no, I want that discovery, because it's like, right, I'm going to use that energy and make it a weapon. The question is, who are you going to sacrifice? Now, to me, I'm like, oh, if you want to be like, now, he is such a religious nut, I can see him being, I don't mean, well, I can call him a religious nut. Yeah, he's an extremist. I was like, oh, I don't want to, but the connotations against anyone that's religious. But it's like, no, he's an extremist. So I can say religious nut without worrying about it. I can see him martyring himself and be like, no, I will be cut. I will be the blast of energy. I will be the blade that cuts through, Lyra or Eve. So I could definitely see him making that sacrifice, but I could also see him being that guy of like, I order you, like maybe making Father Gomez, and Father Gomez is like, yes, I'll happily be the blade that slices through, yada, 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 so on and so forth, right? So that's definitely interesting. But like I said, he's chastising like Dr. Cooper about the work, which rightfully so, but now you're taking advantage of it. So, but maybe for him, it's like, right, I'm not asking you to kill more children, so it's not that bad. It's like, but it's like that terrible thing can be done for good, because it's almost like that was done again, but once again, the Cardinal is the one who okayed all that. So it's like, maybe that's okay in the eyes of the authority based on him, but Father McPhail is kind of, I guess, because he's not, it's interesting because it's like, right, you're up here kind of feeling away from the authority because right, I don't need the authority. I'm the one that's kind of in charge, so I will make this decision, It's like, right, you kind of put the authority above all else, and now it's just kind of, what, I'm going to do this. This prophecy is too important. She needs to be stopped. So, I don't know. I just think the hypocrisy is just interesting in his justifications for it, like how he justifies it in his mind. Cause I think it's like right, little. I mean, because he's already commit. I think it's also right. Let's not forget Marissa did convince him to let the cardinal die and then like kill a whole bunch of witches, and kind of led to the witches kind of like rising back up against you. That's just because Marissa used that as an advantage to like get Father McPhail to leave her alone to be able to do it if she wants to, because she could hold that above his head. It's like right, those sins are kind of yours, so. I guess that made him, he's already since last season, no, that was season 1, tipped over to the, darker side of things regardless, so. No, that wasn't season 1, that was definitely season 2. At least I think it was, if I remember correctly. Either way, tangents and all that aside. So I think that's fascinating. But like I said, the direct parallel with Azrael, because Azrael made it seem like that's what he was going to do to the captured angel. It's like, I'm going to turn you into a weapon. But I guess it was more so like a sign. I want you to be this blinding light of like me killing one of your angels and sending that energy, bam, straight up to you. It's not going to kill you, but it's a very big knock at the door being like, I'm here, which shows you kind of how conceited Azrael is, because it's like, you will know me, which is so interesting because obviously he captured Marissa last episode, and now it's the whole conversation of like, right, I offered you a seat at the table before by my side in this fight back in season 1, you turned me down. It is interesting to think about that's their last interaction in the series was season 1's finale, and now here they are, kind of, it's not really, like, she was kind of, she was probably never going to kill him. She was she was ordered to kind of capture him, and now she's his prisoner. It's interesting. But I think it's a combination of, yes, Azrael still has a thing for Marissa. She will always have a special place in his heart. So you take that in conjunction with, she's a very intelligent person. But it does lead to some very interesting back and forth between them. And some interesting revelations when she's kind of put on trial in front of, was it Roke, Ruth, and, not Ruth, Ruda, and, Gunwy, who are like his counsel is like, right, your decisions kind of go a long way. Like, we will all decide whether or not Marissa gets a say. Ruda has every reason to hate her. It's like, right, you're the reason why you tortured one of my sisters. You're the reason why the Magisterium attacked the witches. You killed so many of my sisters. And it's like, right, I did. And I'm sorry. She said something I thought was so fascinating. I think it's the most honesty we've ever gotten out of Marissa. And it's like she has all this love for Lyra and stuff, but she says something that it been in the back of my mind, but I guess I never really put it to the forefront of my mind. Why she never actually came for Lyra? Why she never really looked for Lyra? But I guess in my head I justify being like, oh, maybe she did look for Lyra, but she never knew where Lyra was. She probably always did, and or maybe she just never put in the fullest effort to find her, because for her, she was like, she admits like, oh, I've never been the best mother. I've not been a good mother. I've actually been a bad mother. And it's not even just about what she's done recently. She says that for years, I didn't think about my daughter. The fact of the matter is, and when I did, I thought about it in regret. And he was almost like, why would our love, a child born from both of us, kind of like the love between us, why would that be such a bad thing? It's like, she's a child born out of like an affair. Plus, the whole situation led to her husband getting murdered. And it's like, right, you didn't have to carry that, Azrael. I had to. And that's also why she did everything she did to try and make a name for herself. Because it's like, right, she lost so much. It's like, Azrael, yes, but he didn't have the cloud. Once again, it is a thing of, especially in that world, I mean, and I think it's a commentary all around, it's like, that scarlet letter is going to land on her. I mean, I'm sure that's a direct parallel. It's kind of like the scarlet letter situation of like, yeah, she had to wear that, because everyone had their whispers or talks, like, it's just a known thing over the years about her circumstances. Everybody knew about it. So it's not like it was a well-kept secret. It's like, no, everyone in the Magisterium knew about it. So it's like, she took whatever and I think that's what probably made her the way she is now, even more so, like, right, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get what I want. And it seems like what really sparked her looking for Lyra is the moment she found out about the Gobblers, the obligation board, where they were, experimenting on children. And that's when she started getting concerned for Lyra. It's like, fast. So I was like, that's why. That's interesting context to be like, that's why after all this time you went up. Like I said, maybe she was slightly looking for Lyra, or maybe she didn't look at all. Or like I said, maybe just didn't try hard enough to look. But she found Lyra because she wanted to protect her, because it's like, right, Lyra's a child. She's just above, like, considering everything that they were working on. But even that's also the thing too, that Azrael threw in her face. It's like, you are the obligation board. That was you. Yeah, but it's like, that's even more so reason why she did it. Because I guess for her, it's like, that was already going to happen regardless. But to be fair, it's like, you're the one that started that. But I guess like the moment they start going down the children route, it started creeping in the back of her mind. My child could be on the end of that blade. She's even saying like, right, she did save Lyra from that blade back in season 1. Speaking of the station, since we brought up Dr. Cooper earlier and everything, so. But for her, it's like, right, I would do whatever it takes. Like, fine, you got someone watching Lyra, then I would just promise me she's safe, and I'll do whatever you want me to. And it's like, why would we trust you? And Ruda's like, and she tells Ruda, I love my daughter. You can count on that. So there is that complicated thing of, yes, she loves her daughter. Once again, that desire has been so distorted because there's just so much package, there's so much baggage, there's so much wrapped up in that conundrum that is her love for her daughter, whereas Azrael's literally on the other side of the spectrum, and it's always been there. But when you see them in the same room together, oh, I love my daughter, that infernal girl, like the different parallels of just how they're both on the extreme opposite spectrums when it comes to Lyra, like, right, you have Coulter being like, I am in love with my daughter. I love my daughter. I'll do whatever it takes to protect her. Anything at all. Azrael's doing everything to stay away from his daughter. It's like, if she had just stayed in Jordan like she was supposed to, none of this would be happening. Like, she, But Marissa does point something out. It's like, you don't actually mean the words you say. So part of me is like, oh. Like, I interpreted it the entire time like, Azrael's an asshole. That's all I chalked it up to. But I'm like, well, maybe it is an overcompensation because he does love his daughter. But once again, to do what I need to do, to fight this fight I need to fight, I'm going to have to, like, cut my ties with her. It's the only way I can do what I've got to do. And obviously, like, he found out about... Because it's like, oh, what about, I heard about this knife. Do you know anything about it? It's like, oh, this boy Will, yeah, I don't really care for him too much. He's kind of an annoyance. But, hey, I don't know anything about the knife. I'm like, why are you lying about the knife? I'm like, well, I guess you want that to be in your back pocket in case you get to Lyra. Because the last thing you want him to know is that you are aware of the knife. Because... If he doesn't think you know about the knife, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's like, then when it's time, you could keep it safe. And like, well, also, even if she tracked them down again, like, none of them, well, anyone can use the knife, but only like, I don't know if like only, because it hasn't really come up yet because, oh God, what's her face? It's Bella Ramsey's character from season 2. Her brother had the knife, right? But we know he could cut through anything with it. Doesn't matter. But I don't know if they can necessarily use the cutting open windows ability. Or is that something only the knife bearer could do? That's where I'm like... Because anyone could use the knife. So that's what I was about to say. She'd be able to use it. But I don't know if she'd be able to use it in the same capacity that Will would be able to. Or a knife bearer would be able to, So I think that's fascinating. All in its own right. It just kind of, because it hasn't really come up yet. I don't know if that's something that's ever really tackled or answered in the books. But either way, my point was like, right, would she try and just take the knife from Will? Or would she try and force Will's hand? Because it's like, right, he wasn't going to cooperate with you before. Lyra's not going to cooperate with you. So it's like 2 against 1, but you're kind of like, I'm sure Sheik's like, I can be very, very persuasive, so I'll swing them my way. But it's like, yeah, you didn't tell me not only do you know about the knife, you're also the reason why the knife broke. So, yeah. Also, it's like, right, I pull my person off of Lyra and Will because if the knife is broken, I don't need to be concerned about them. And Azrael kind of went into this whole thing about why he does what he does. Because Marissa brings up some great points of like, oh, like, don't you see what you're doing here? Like, you've always been obsessed with power, which he kind of throws back at her too. Like, oh, you've always been obsessed with power too. But it's like, she believes like, oh, you're going to like, oh, look at all these people kind of bowing and admiring you, like, oh, the great Lord Azrael, do they bow to you as well? And it's like, all right, you just want to praise someone on the throne. He's like, I don't want a throne. I'm trying to basically destroy a throne. But for her, she's just like, right, like the way you're walking around. And he even made a point once again. Oh, that angel was like, yo, the authority doesn't even know your name. And it's like, it feels like he wants to be like, he will know my name. It's like, it feels like there's a little glory houndishness to it. You know, like he wants to be that special. Like he talks about everyone being special, but maybe that is where he's kind of being like, no, I am no one special. And that's the point. Like this fight is going to be on my shoulders. But the fact that, I don't know. There is some conceitedness to it where I just feel like he does make it all about me, even though he'll justify it to be like it's about other people. But at the heart of it, it's about you. I don't know. Whether or not altruism is at the heart of all that he's doing is kind of irrelevant when it's like, right, it doesn't really matter when in the end you're doing good for the greater multiverse. But then it's also like, yeah, but what are your intentions at the end of it all? Because you could easily just be like, oh, this throne. The way I'm seen is worshipped as a hero. Oh, cool. I'm so great. That could also be a thing too, but regardless. We don't know what will Azrael do like at the end of it all, at the end of his fight, at the end of his war. So there's that. But I thought it was so interesting when Azrael kind of said this line to Ruta. I mean, not Ruta, because what keeps popping in my head is Ruth, and obviously that's Ruth Wilson's name. She's the actress who plays Marissa, and I think that kind of gets stuck in my head. But with Marissa, that line of, why can't you be who I want you to be? It's like, why, it's like that. Once again, that shows you a little bit of Azrael. It's like, I want you to be who I want you to be. Like, we could do this together this time. And then he tells her, like, right, literally, I've done everything. I've sacrificed so much in my life for this fight because this fight's that important. But he's also like, all that you've done, like, the fact is he kind of spills the beans because it's like, right, you're still in the dark about it. He's like, the authority isn't even like the creator of all things. He has a regent in charge right now, just another angel, which is practically another person, because like, it's right, the angels have these powers and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, they can be killed. They're not immortal. They can be killed. I mean, he's gunning for the authority, who is just, in fact, just an angel themselves. But it's like, yeah, it's just another person in that seat. And she's like, right, it's a lie. It's like, she's like, no, you can't. He's like, yes, it's a lie. Everything. You dedicated and sacrificed so much to the Magisterium for what? A lie. Because it was just someone basically instilling fear and obedience across the multiverse. And it's like, right, you did all that. Killing those children, it was all for nothing. And in that moment, you see it like from Marissa, it's almost like, yeah, because she believed. I mean, the Magisterium was kind of borderline of, I mean, people made that comparison. Some people go like, organized religion. I'm not saying I have this perspective, but I have heard some people kind of be like, organized religion, kind of little culty, So it's like, yeah, she was pretty much brainwashed into like a cult that was all about, subjugating, and had subjugated her world for so long. So it is that realization of like, right, you did all this, and for him, it's like, yeah, you did all that death, all the terrible things you've done for nothing. It was all for a lie. So yeah, it's like it's just another angel. Like the authority isn't the end all be all. The creator isn't actually God. It's just like they just took up that position. All this was already there. They're just like, yeah, I'm gonna be the one that kind of dictates stuff. I mean, who knows if this is a situation where there is a God, but they, disappeared and angels took over, very much like, a la like Supernatural type of situation or not. But then there was the whole situation with the angel they had captured. And Ruta and Agunwi had this conversation about like, right, when it's all said and done, he was like, you said you trusted Azrael wholeheartedly. Like, was that the truth? And for her, it's a conversation about Xanthenia, the angel that's on their side. It's like, right, her forces are gathering, her rebels. But it's like, yeah, but would they really be too happy, they could easily turn against us because we have one of their own captured. It's like, right, your fight is with the authority, this pretender to the throne, pretending to be something that they're not. Sure, but they're not going to be too keen on one of their brethren. I mean, this said brother ended up killing another, which Zephaniah had an issue with, but still. And it's like, right, it's because Agumi was like, do you really think that they'll turn on us? And it's like, she's like, I don't know. I guess it all depends. And he's like, on what? On what Azrael does to that angel. And what does he do? He kills that angel. And you're like, that's probably not going to look too good. Zephaniah's probably not going to be too much of a fan of that, regardless of him killing one of your fellow angels last episode. That still probably won't sit with her. I mean, she also has to deal with, like, the other angels not being too keen. I mean, I'm sure they look down on because obviously that was a conversation I think Ruta had with, was it this episode or last episode? It's blurring together a little bit. It might have been this episode. She had that conversation with Agunwi about how, right, witches live for a very long time. Also saying that angels live for even longer, because witches live for hundreds of years, angels live for millennia. So she's like, right, angels probably look at us the same way we look at humans. And it's like what? Like, your lifespans are so fragile and just you're here for such a short time in comparison. So they'll probably look at it even more so like, oh, you dare kill one of our own regardless of your situation. But once again, he can go super mad scientist like. To be fair, Marissa is the same way. They're kind of two peas in a pod. And so he's just kind of like, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to send my message. And he goes, like I said, goes full Victor Frankenstein there, which he's played Victor Frankenstein before, hasn't he? Yeah, I looked it up. I thought I remembered. It's the movie. It was him as Frankenstein and Daniel Radcliffe as Igor. But I was like, I thought I vividly remember him playing. It's a movie from 2015. I've never seen it before, but I vividly had remembered that, so I thought that was so interesting. It's like, yeah, I just saw that. It's like, yeah, how very just interesting parallel there. Either way, like you said, he goes full mad scientist, ends up killing that angel. He's just all about, he's like, like he's getting so excited about, he wanted Marissa, and it was almost like Marissa was there. Well, he was saying like, right, I'm going to use the technology she made to cut so many. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to use you to send a message to the authority. Blah, 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 blah. And it was almost like it felt gloaty, like he was like, Marissa, bask in my glory type of feel. That's kind of what it had. So, but Marissa used that opportunity. I was like, I figured she had summoned, because she was examining the intention craft, and you're like, she's going to take advantage of that, which she does and takes off. And, I mean, I guess he could have tried to stop her, but he chose not to. And when Agumi like, why are you doing it? What do you have scheming? He's like, right, she wants to play the role of mother, let her. You know? It's like, they'll have to face her. And I'm like, I wonder, does that mean, is he referencing the Magisterium or just anyone that come after Lyra? It's like, right, let her do whatever she wants to. Because Agumi was worried about that when the time came, like, he would kind of be swayed by her, which he kind of was. He just kind of gave her like, all right, go ahead, do what you got to do. But, and he wasn't going to stop her. It's like, right, you want to go protect our daughter, fine, but I've got my fight. You go and do yours. So took it a little bit better than I thought he would. But once again, it's just like, right, I got too much at play, too much at stake here. Like I said, just a parallel of what he did to that angel is exactly what McPhail wants to do to make a weapon to kill Lyra. You just want to do one. It's like, right, the knife doesn't exist anymore. The knife is broken. It's like, well, they're in the process of fixing it in this episode. We'll get to that in a second. But it's like, yeah, I'll go ahead and make my own kind of... So there is a direct parallel, though, interestingly enough. But picking up with Lyra and Will... Lyra suggests, she finds out that the knife is broken, which I was curious about. Like, it never crossed my mind to be like, oh, York could be the one to fix it. It never crossed my mind. I was like, right, the bears do make their own sky armor, their own armor from sky iron, so it makes sense. Plus, he is a blacksmith. But I'm like, it just never crossed my mind. Like, oh yeah, of course, York can be the one that helped fix it. But Will has his reservations about it because it's like she wants to go to the land of the dead. But for Will, it's like, yeah, I didn't do what... For him, it's like, ever since his father died, I've done everything he told me. I haven't done a single thing he asked me to do. He asked me to go to Azrael's side and bring him the knife. I didn't. I immediately spent that entire time trying to find you. And I love that conversation with Penn. It's like, Lyra, like, sometimes, like, can't you just say, like, I'm sorry? And she's like, why? I have nothing to be sorry about. He's like, he did so much. He didn't stop looking. He came to find you, you know? And I love her being like, you're not always right, Pan. And then immediately 3 seconds later does walk up to Will. I'm sorry. I thought that was kind of adorable. But he apologizes too. It's just he's torn between two different places of like, right, doing what his father wanted him to. His father's dying wish is like, right, you need to go to Azrael and bring him the knife. And it's like, I haven't done that. And now, but it's like, but also, you are important to me. I wasn't going to just leave you where you are, considering what your mother did to you. You know, no mother should do that. Because for him, he had this complicated situation with his mother, not because she was a bad mother. It's just like, right, she gets confused sometimes. She has bad days, and like, kids would ridicule him for it. And like, he never 100% took that out on his mom. He just kind of went like, right, he just took it with stride. She needs me, you know? And that's why a lot of what, Marissa saying last episode really stuck with him. But when it comes to this situation, he doesn't know what to do. And I think it's this really, really interesting conversation that him and Lyra ultimately end up having with Yorick. Because she's like, right, at the very least, get Yorick to repair the knife, and then you can decide what to do. I can go to the land of the dead for Roger, and you can go to Azrael's side, and, you know... and she'll figure things out because the alethiometer kind of tells her what to do. She even says like, oh, the alethiometer is kind of confused and not quite sure. And I love that, you know, Yorick is like, see, the alethiometer knows the bad guy. And she's like, but then it also says like, they end it like, oh, I need to go. And he's just like, oh, look at you. Always the silver tongue, because she's always kind of quick to kind of sway stuff. But the really interesting thing I thought was like, right, Yorick was like, this isn't a good idea. Yes, Will has his own intentions, but the knife has its own intentions as well. And Lyra, the place of the dead, is not somewhere you should go, you know? But she talks about doubt. And he's like, right, doubt is like a human thing. Bears no doubt. It's like, says a guy who was drinking because of failure. Like the thought of failure kind of kept him stagnant, kept you drinking. But she's like, that's not a bad thing. She's like, the fact is, good people like you and Will, you doubt your paths. You don't know for sure what's right. Which I think is such an interesting thing for her, because like, she's like, someone who fully knows like, this is the, you know, like someone who doesn't have some doubts about what they do, like whether or not they're on the right path or not. Because for her, it's like, my mom and dad are both like, both believe themselves to be on the right paths, believe themselves to be doing what's right wholeheartedly. And it's like, right, having no doubts is not a good thing. Like, having some doubt means like, right, you're considering everything, that you're still like, right, I'm not sure what is. The fact is, you're giving it some thought, you know, about what is the right thing to do. Whereas Azrael and Marissa are like, oh, we know for sure what the right thing to do is. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting perspective on it. So considering like, right, they do need to go and get the knife, like, you know. So Yorick decides he will fix the knife, but it isn't just on him. It also has to be on Will. He has his divided intentions is what broke the knife. His intentions being focused is what will. And so he's trying to think back to everything. And he's kind of torn between, like, once again, what his father wants, what Marissa said to him about his mom, and the knife didn't stick back together. But then he focused and he saw Lyra. It's like, right, focus on what's important to him, Lyra is. And so in that moment, the knife snapped back into place, and Yorick was able to finish forging it afterward, like repairing it. And I think it's neat that it hasn't, like, yes, like, it's not like it's all like, oh man, it's forged, renewed, like magically sealed up. It's like, no, you still see, yes, it's sealed back, but it will forever have the scratches, the scars for being broken. Which I'm like, ooh, I like that. I think that's such a neat design. It's not the clean blade it was anymore. Like, which I think almost shows. It's an interesting thing because him and Lyra both talked about how both different they are after everything. Which I wonder if that's just kind of supposed to be like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge about like, yeah, Daphne and Amir have gotten older, you know, so I think that's just kind of supposed to be like a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to that, but also it's like, right, their circumstances have, the situations they found themselves in have kind of changed them in that time frame, but also like wink wink the actors who play him have gotten older too. But the knife has been forged, and obviously Yorick is saying that, when if they make it through this, obviously like there will always be a place for them, with in the north, and saying that Lyra always has a place there, and so does Will. Obviously, like that, there's a chance they might not come back from the land of the dead, but he hopes they do, because Will has decided he's going to go with her because he saw her in his and he's decided to go with her because he's like, right, I'm not just my father, I'm also my mother. My mother says, like, if a friend is in need, you have to kind of go with them. And he's like, right, you need to go help your friend Roger, so I'm going to be by your side. Which I'm like, I'm glad. Because I was like, man, it's going to suck. Like, you guys just found your way back to each other. You're going your separate ways. But it's like, no, we're in this together. He's making that choice. Because they had told the person, which I don't know if that was just her putting them down or whether that is true. What the fact is that Marissa referred to Roke and his people as like insects, so I don't know if like they legitimately are supposed to be like bug people, or is she just saying that because they're small and they fly around? Because I was like, are they supposed to be like fairies or something like that, like this world's version? But I mean, maybe they legitimately are like bug people. Either way, it's kind of irrelevant. But like they had told the other ones, like, right, we're not going to go to Azrael's side. We'll come to him when we need to. But when it's all said and done, we'll go about things our own way. Not kind of being controlled. Like, obviously, Azrael is all about, like, fighting against people being controlled and freedom and stuff like that. Then they have the freedom to choose when and if they decide to show up for this fight, which I think they will in the end. But obviously, Lyra had a reservation because it's like, yeah, this man murdered my friend. I trusted Azrael, and I shouldn't have. And in this moment, it's like, right, for Will, he's putting more so his trust in Lyra in this moment. And he's like, right, tell me that this is the right thing. She's like, I hope this is the right thing. And he's like, then I'll just have to be good enough. And I do think it's such an interesting thing. Like, when he finds that spot, he was almost like, whoa, it's almost like it shouldn't cut through. And he's like, this is the last world I can find. And they find the way to the land of the dead, which Pan is not a fan of. He's just like, right, we shouldn't be here. This might have been a mistake. So, because he had planned on, regardless of the circumstances are, like, if she was going to go for Roger, he was going to go with her. It's like, right, we kind of do everything together. We're obviously bound together, obviously the demon and everything, but it's like, right, I will always be by your side during this stuff, so. There's also the Mary stuff I thought was interesting. I don't think we found out what world she ended up in. I'm curious, is it Azrael's world that she... I don't know, because we don't know if it's the same... If the hole that they went through and the one Gunwy went through and brought his men through, we don't know if that's the same one, but I'm assuming that's where Mary's going to be. Which, once again, I think it would be interesting because, like I said, Xanthenia, I think it's the one she was talking to last season, so that's where Xanthenia would be, so it's just interesting if that ends up being the case, because we still don't fully know what her role in all of this is going to be, but her journey across these worlds, she's going for Lyra's sake, so maybe, in fact, maybe her and Marissa will bump into each other, as like Marissa's trying to find Lyra, bound by her intention, so I'm assuming that's going to take her to the land of the dead as well, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see how that ends up playing out. I'm very, very excited to see where the next episode is going to take us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.